Hello, friends. It's Chapo. Guess I'll just fill my pockets with stones, and walk into the ocean.
Okay, so second, the American left can't be held hostage by professionals. Like, however precarious and downwardly mobile we may be, the middle classes and our particular passions can't be the primary audience of the campaign, or the activist left, who often have their own economic incentives for pushing that agenda. I don't know how to talk about 80 Bargain without getting into trouble.
I would avoid it.
Yeah, I would. I would.
Let's say this.
Let's skip
I
that
think
one.
we all know some people. Okay, let's say this.
No,
censored.
abort.
In the game. Parody. In the game.
In the game. All right, cut that. But we will say that a lot of the people who maybe you think of as, working families party.
Okay, that's
They've done some decent work, but we know who butters their bread. So don't necessarily defer to the professional activists on this either. Anyway, third, youth is not a class.
Well, this is a big one because like you look at the results here, and it isn't like whether it's this country or the UK, it is very stark in terms of like over and under 40 years old,
50 years old.
50 years old. Is that the real cutoff?
Yeah.
It's very.
That's not even old people.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not even young people. Like,
Right? Like yeah, like
I'm a spry 42. And in England, that's like being 100.
You just keep swelling.
I mean, it's so hard to tell. It's so hard to tell. You could be 18 and just look fucking 50 years old.
Well, yeah, 5 minutes
Ooh,
of
they age
sunlight
hard.
ages them
They
10
age
years.
hard there.
But no, Amber, you look at the splits.
Yeah.
Whether it's in this country or the election that just happened in UK, and it is very, very stark. Right. But like, why is that?
Keeps happening over and over again, where people are like, "Oh, the youth will save
us."
us."
Why is that kind of like a sort of a fool's gold, or not? It's not as telling as you think it would be.
Because the Zoomer of today is the Boomer of tomorrow.
Well, my question about
it's like the demography thing. Sorry, it's like the demography thing too, where it's like, oh, well, as soon as there are enough brown people, then we'll. Or it's like as soon as this generation, it's like no, they get jobs and grow up. And
I've been trying to think about this thing because the data is just so stark on the age gap that I've had to deal with it both here and during this last election, that I've been having to like try to grapple with it. And I absolutely share your instinctive revulsion towards generational politics. It's a dead end. It's liberal. It's not in any way Marxist or dialectical. But what I've come to kind of think about is just like, all right, imagine where you have to be in a country like the United States or the Great Britain as you're like a 50-plus person, right? You are either economically secure enough that the economic appeal of socialism doesn't really register. It doesn't move you because you don't have those material concerns. Or if you have made it that old, and as we know, old people or poor people die younger than old people, which is why the old people cohort is so reactionary. It's made up of mostly richer people who've lived that long because they could.
they made it.
But even the poor, but the thing is that the poorer people who have lived that long have seen nothing but failure and cynicism and disappointment in the lifetime of politics, so they have no remaining belief or investment or in the credibility of the political system.
The older people in the UK have spent their lives being betrayed by labor.
Exactly.
The older people in the US, the poor, and we have huge elder poverty in both of these countries, by the way. It's the whole boomer thing kind of doesn't make that much sense because old people are actually very poor and not doing very well. I mean, there's a lot of rich old people, but like elder poverty is like insane. But like they have watched the Democrats fuck them over. They have lived to watch the union movement crumble under the Democrats, sometimes by their hands.
So the challenge is, how do you repair that breach of trust? How do you reattach that severed limb? And they weren't able to do it definitively. We saw they weren't able to do it because honestly, if they really made themselves credible, if Jeremy Corbyn was a credible guy offering the social democratic agenda, I think people would have overlooked Brexit or anything else because those are all just subsidiary concerns of a greater economic disenfranchisement and alienation. Somebody gets to the root of your concern and you think they can deliver, that's what you care about. At the end of the day, they didn't think he could get it done. And the thing is the challenge is how do you reestablish the trust?
Yeah.
And I don't know how. We know Corbyn didn't, but I don't know how you do it.
This is my fourth point. Finally, we understand that this is first and foremost a campaign to democratize the economy and build working class power, not a moralist crusade to convert every American to the cultural etiquette and private language of a self-appointed left. The problem with left-wing campaigns for a while is that they've been very moralist in tone. They've been very, every child gets a poem in tone, and they have not been about strength and power. And even the manifesto, I love it, but they're like, we're going to give you all these things. That sounds like a lie. I mean, it just sounds like, how many times have poor people been told that they're going to get all these things? But anyway, also to the moralist point, people don't need to be lectured on how to be good because people are already good generally, and we like them and we care about them, and they deserve better, and they deserve control over their lives, the wealth they produce, and the political machinery of this country. And that is the winning message of the Bernie campaign. That is how you build trust. You don't just talk about, we're going to give you these things, it's going to be great. We're going to talk about, we are building power together.
I will say that the thing that there was a BuzzFeed article about the Bernie campaign that really was great, and what it pointed out and really underlined is that at some level Bernie understands, because he really has, he's a mentat for America's leftist tradition. He's absorbed the entire thing into his being. He's a lawnmower man. So he understands the challenges posed by trying to recreate a left movement in this country. And so that article talks about how, as the 2016 campaign was premised on the big rallies, and that was to give him credibility because this is a guy who came out of nowhere. Now that he's more well established in people's minds and he's already a household name, it's about reorienting the campaign around amplifying the stories of just regular people. Mm-hmm. Because if the political class has been totally their credibility has been destroyed by generations of neoliberal ruin, then you rekindle that credibility by getting someone to vouch for them. And if you have other people saying, we're all suffering from the same things, this is the solution, you have gone around the decrepit sense of trust existing between the political party and the people, and gotten around it to be just people telling their stories, recognizing common plight, common exploiters, and directing the energy that way.
And it's about power, not charity. And I think someone said that, for the many, not the few, is nice and good, but somehow with the manifesto being sort of like a shopping list of offers, it sort of is like, well, shouldn't it be by the many? You know? And that's why not me, us
is
a stronger one.
That's such a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, it's for the many, not by, because that is, at the end of the day, that's why nobody bought it.
We're not giving you things.
We saw so many fucking people
taking power
who say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and their answer was, they say that all the time.
Yeah, they're going to give us this
it's a bunch of fucking con artists.
Manage us from on high.
Yes, it has to be a collaborative process. And the thing is, that's why it's such a challenge, because the neoliberal era has been battery acid on social cohesion and social bonds, to the degree that the kind of organization that makes citizen participation possible is unthinkable. Yeah. So you're recreating the very idea of a fucking political commons out of thin air, out of a generation of amnesia.
Yeah. Bernie isn't just promising you stuff. Everyone promises you stuff. The right-wingers promise you stuff. Bernie is demanding we get a seat at the table.
Yeah. And that we have to fight. The fight begins when we vote, which is why I'm a little worried, because people are so conditioned to think that politics is stepping into a booth 2 or 4 years and pressing a button, and then they go home and then something takes care of itself. If that's the model, then nothing will ever be accomplished. And even if Bernie wins, it'll be a failure. People have to change their relationship to politics and participate. But the thing that makes them want to participate is the feeling that they're actually doing something.
This is a fight
control
for power.
Of their destiny.
This is a fight for power, and it is a fight for control over our lives and the wealth we produce and the political machinations of this country. And Bernie has a stronger message on that than Corbyn did.
However you want to define it, if you just want to boil that down to numbers, forget why or how, Bernie, one of the most popular politicians in America by all measures. Corbyn, dog shit, sub-zero numbers in personal likability. We could talk about why that is, but that's the real material difference, is that they cannot do to Bernie what they did to Corbyn. Even if they realize after Iowa, oh shit, this is going to happen, it'll be too late. The public idea of Bernie is too well established. He's a good guy. He's not going to bullshit you. He's crazy.
He's not
Bernie.
just a good guy. He's a strong guy. He's
Exactly.
a fighter. He's a fucking bulldog.
Honestly, I feel like Trump's nickname for Bernie tells you all you need to know. Tells you that because Trump has
This is really good.
Trump is a
yeah.
moron, but he has an instinctive understanding of the
he's
electorate.
so good at bullying.
He has, and he's a master bully. He goes for weakness. That he's a tiger shark, just like smells the blood and goes for weakness. And so he knows who is a threat, and he knows who he can fucking bully into submission. And so he gives them nicknames to try to set the public idea of them. It was Crooked Hillary in 2016. And it's like, yeah, she's incredibly crooked. Everyone understood that. And it reminded them every day what a fucking crook she was. This time, what does he call them? Sleepy Joe. He's senile. He's sundowning
Lil
all the
Marco?
time. He needs a nap.
Oh, Lil Marco.
Lil Marco, low energy Jeb. But like right now, Sleepy Joe, he's a senile old man who's out to lunch. Watch it for 20 seconds and that confirms that. And so it reminds you of what you know about him. All he is doing is reminding you comically of what you already know about that candidate. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, she's phony. She's full of shit. She's a fucking white lady pretending to be an Indian. And you know what? Elizabeth Warren is insanely phony.
Yeah.
Watch her try to prevaricate on Medicare for all in any interview or in a debate, and she just like the squirming energy of a lying bullshitter just
fucking
wafts
phony.
off the fucking screen.
Yeah.
But what is the name that he gives to Bernie? He calls him Crazy Bernie. I'm sorry. Crazy Bernie is awesome. Crazy Bernie gets you a deal
America.
on speakers. Come down to Crazy Bernie's. 50% off all hi-fi units.
And
you
America
know what?
loves crazy
You go down
people.
there and you get a cheap fucking hi-fi.
Our deductibles and premiums are so low they don't exist. It's insane.
So Trump even subconsciously understands who's the real threat to him.
Yeah, you know what he's doing? He's dangerous Donalding Bernie.
Exactly.
Damn, two cool dudes running for president against each other. Can't wait.
Dangerous Donald and Crazy Bernie out on the street.
But,
in their doo-wop band. Wearing matching leather jackets.
But to that BuzzFeed article about Bernie, like the standout graph, and it's the one that got shared the most, and it's the one that really stuck in my head because I think it really clarifies a lot of what I respond to in Sanders and what I think most of the people who support him respond to. They talk about like what distinguishes the way he campaigns from others is like how much he doesn't want to talk to the media. He hates the media. He hates everything
well he
about
should.
Yes,
He
as
hates
well
politics.
he should too. Everyone who is
If
just
you don't
like,
hate the media, if you're
our
on the left
journal-
and you don't hate
Exactly.
the media, you're a group.
Exactly.
So, but what do you?
But you know when I did the interview with Bernie, the first thing he did is walk in the room, smell it, say it stinks in here, look at me, go, what the fuck is a podcast? It's a radio on the internet for virgins. Okay, let's get this fucking thing over with.
and
No,
you're like,
so-
yes.
But what,
Yes,
he,
sir.
what he does, in favor, like, what he does instead of that is he talks to people, and he talks to people one on one, or like about the pain in their lives, the misery, like the suffering, that from the small to the great that they experience on a day-to-day basis. But what's different about that is that it's not the Bill Clinton DLC shit, the I feel your pain thing. And what Bernie does that's different is he says, like, I recognize that this is why you're suffering, but like we're all suffering. Everyone feels the same thing you do. And most importantly, you're not wrong to feel that way. And the way that Americans have been conditioned to react to the struggles in their lives is to turn it in on themselves and feel self-loathing
Yeah.
about why you're not doing better. And
Or turn it outward in reactionary ways.
yes, yeah, exactly. Like and the way that like just the for as long as I've been alive, like the liberal or democratic establishment has basically just accepts markets as like the weather, that we've all just decided that this is
What can you
essentially
do?
unchangeable, and the best we can do is feel your pain in a way that is like phonily, like it sort of registers that we understand you in some vague way. But what we're actually offering you are the the skills wallets that you need to compete in like our ever.
There is no alternative.
Yeah. What we're gonna
Bernie
give-
is telling us we can control the weather.
How about
Yes.
6
we
day
can
week?
control the weather.
How about about 6 day
we will
weeks
make
for
it
poor
rain.
kids? How about we constantly have cops shooting at the feet of poor children to get them into schools?
Oh yeah,
whenever
God,
they see them
that
in
was
public?
fucking. Michael Bennett just said we need a 6 day week.
We need
for
to
fucking
basically
schools.
turn our children into fucking helot slave troops. Because meanwhile, our fucking rich kids, the children in the private schools, of course, they would insist that their children need to be treated like fucking Emile from the goddamn Rousseau book, and get to just like grow in an unfettered freedom expression zone. Meanwhile, poor kids have to be turned into basically fucking galley slaves for the fucking SATs.
Yeah. They get turned
But that's
into
what they
mechanical
deserve.
clerks,
That's
yeah.
how they get out of poverty. Maybe some of them.
But I'm just saying, like, this idea that, like, we're going to tinker at the edges. We're going to give you the skills you need to find the opportunities that will help you in our global solutions for a global world and our, like, entrepreneurial changing economy. Oh, and by the way, except unless you work in the healthcare sector, by the way, if you lose your job, then that's a fucking tragedy and that should never happen. Everyone else get fucked. Like, yeah, learn a new fucking skill. Go to the skills store. We're offering discounts. We're going to give you an earned income tax credit to go to the skills store and shop for the fucking skills you need to get another job.
Skills supermarket sweep. All the skills you can grab in 30 seconds.
But yeah, no, it's just that
It's like
sense
skills
of
Black Friday where women are just punching each other in the face to get the best skills.
But yeah, Bernie understands that you have to reestablish credibility with your fucking claims before you can.
And he's
build
got an
on
edge
anything.
because he's not a fucking Democrat.
And that's that's like, if you don't recognize that that's a plus, you fundamentally misread the moment, as most people do. Because what they don't understand, and I think this is on everybody from like the center left squishes to radical ultra leftists, you might be able to convince them that there would be that you could say, like, the movement towards any kind of decent society, socialist, communism, whatever the fuck it is